But
Hey,
hello,
starting over. Happy Friday, Merle.
and happy Friday to you.
Yeah, basically,
Welcome to Over 50 starting over.
basically woke up to the possibility of World War III getting underway. See that Iran lost the counter. Was it Iran? No, Israel launched
Yeah,
another counter to Iran, and but Biden said, "Don't."
yeah. That was pretty intimidating, I think, when he
Yeah,
said he actually said it, several times, and it was don't.
He's got no explanation because he's not really sure what he was talking
I
about. But
think he was doing his best Clint Eastwood there. He was trying to come up with a make my day line, and it was just don't, and they did. So now what?
Yeah, exactly. Now what?
I really think, World War III, we talk about World War III all the time, and it's like, is this it? I don't know. It seems like it could be. It seems like it may have already started even before this. I don't know how you
poking the
technically
bear.
decide.
It's the Middle East, man. It's poking the bear. And it could have just a domino effect. And another thing Biden did, I hate to just get straight into this stuff. Maybe we can back up out of it. But
Right.
Another thing that he did was make sure that he said we are unconditionally, unequivocally, however he said it, behind Israel. Israel's like, all right, we could do anything, man. And we're going to fund it. We are funding it, of course.
Well, we're funding. It's funny, Barry, because we just forgave sanctions to Iran, freeing up $10 billion about a month ago to Iran. All right. So they were broke. And then we forgave all the sanctions and let them have access to billions of dollars. Then about a week and a half ago, Joe Biden was talking to Israel, and he actually said that, look, this is starting to look like genocide, and we may have to think about supporting you with aid. And within a week, the attack came from Iran. It seems like we're kind of instigating both sides of the coin here. Why are we in the middle? Why are we funding both sides of the war?
Military industrial complex, for
I
sure.
mean, there it is right there. Yep.
I heard it explained. I think it was on Crystal and Sagar. I think it was Sagar and Jetty was saying that it was Iran's attack was negotiated military theater because it was negligible. It was known it was going to be negligible. It was just theater. Well, I think all of this kind of is.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, here's Iran saying, hey, an attack is imminent. Who does that?
Yeah.
We're going to attack you, and it'll be at
here's what we're going to use.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It seems the whole thing seems extremely staged, and it seems like there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than
it sure does. And you know what? I'm just going to get right into it. I got other lighter things, non-political to talk about, but this does lead it right into Mike Johnson, Speaker. What do you think of this guy? Because I'm not liking him at all.
I don't like the Republicans. Let's put it that way. The Republicans suck. They don't have a plan.
They're neocons. They want the wars. Mike Johnson speaks out of both sides of his mouth, denouncing the wars. Then these bills come up, and he's pushing with the Democrats. Democrats pushing for $95 billion to go to Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel, and yet we have open borders here in the United States. That makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, his whole thing was that we're not going to do all these other things until we close the border, and then he did all those other things. I mean, this is the same record playing over and over and over again. I'm tired of it.
I am too. It's infuriating. I guess the only thing that we started to touch on, well, in the last podcast, which Lisa said was really hard to watch because of all of our technical difficulties once again, which was due to a storm at my place. I had lost internet the entire next day.
Oh my gosh.
It's very windy. We lost trees and everything. So that's what it was. So sorry about that. we started on the story about East Palestine, or Steen, however you choose to say it. Yeah. But Norfolk Southern finally agrees to pay $600 million out to East Palestine for the train derailment. And that was a long time coming. Remember how it was ignored politically?
Yeah.
So much.
No kidding.
Yeah. And if you saw footage on that, it was horrific. And locally, we had follow-up stuff for a couple months to come about all the fish dying in the river. And I mean, it was an environmental tragedy, to say the least.
Well, it's interesting to me as I take a look at this. You're right. The political response was terrible. Buttigieg doesn't get there until a couple of months after it was over. Biden doesn't get there until a year after it's over. This is a terrible situation where people's lives are in jeopardy. The whole place is contaminated. We saw video all year long of, I remember one woman threw a rock into the river and all this crazy oil came up out of the river. That I mean, it's like, God, who could live there? Nobody could sell their houses. Who wants to buy a house in East Palestine, Ohio? Right. They're in big trouble. The interesting thing to me is how we talk all about infrastructure, and we know that railroads are infrastructure for us, and we have this crash, and we've had crashes all over the country,
and into a couple bridges of late.
Well, that's the interesting part, because you look at the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, and the knee-jerk reaction was not to go after the shipping company, but rather to say the United States federal government is going to pay for this right away. And that was the knee-jerk, totally different from the reaction in East Palestine, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And the thing that jumps off the page to me is that Baltimore is a blue city and East Palestine is a red city. And the reaction was pretty tangible when you look at it. Oh, well, if it happens in Baltimore, the federal government's going to pay for it. If it happens in East Palestine, whatever.
There's probably something to that for it, because they hate. I heard quotes about people, well, that's just a bunch of Trump supporters. That was kind of like headlines.
That was right away. And let's see what the response is going to be. And it was lackluster. And so now we look at what happened with the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And gosh, the information, I saw the mayor of Baltimore on television, who is a young black man, talking about how white America is terrified of people like him, and that this was all about racism. And I'm like, how the bridge went down and this is about racism suddenly? And so everything's so politicized when you take a look at this whole thing.
Everything's racist.
Boy, you got to look at this thing and look at what's happening in our country. We have all these weird things happening, like the East Palestine. You've got the Francis Scott Key Bridge. We got, just last weekend, 25 barges got loose on the Ohio River in the Pittsburgh area the Ohio River got flooded. 25 barges careened down the Ohio River, destroying a port in Pittsburgh. We've never 25 barges. You imagine, how big these barges are. Yeah. Apparently they got loose from a tugboat. And I'm like, wait, a tugboat was 25 barges? What are we talking about here? How does this happen? And how come we've never heard of anything like these things happening before? We've got food processing plants that are blowing up, catching on fire. We got all the cows burnt up, all the chickens burnt up. How does this happen?
Oh,
and could this possibly be a super coincidence? Yes, I'm being facetious. It seems like,
but for Buttigieg to still be employed by the government.
How can that be? How can Mayorkas have gotten away without being impeached? They didn't even do a trial on the guy, and everyone can see what's going on down there.
Right.
We're going down a real dark path, but it is a lot of things that are going on now.
There are, and we can come back to that. I just want to get on with some other kind of, I think, important things, interesting things before we just sit here and complain to the audience for the next hour.
That's what we're doing right now.
And I'm going to make sure that I have share available to you. And I want to share something with you guys. And we started to talk about this on the last podcast, but we started talking about a lot of things that didn't transpire. And this is the launching of Dr. Phil's Merit Street Media. And if I refresh the page, this is how you see it. Then it immediately comes up a channel finder. I got to tell you, they made this idiot proof so that you can find it. So you get here, if you don't know what's going on, they even give you a phone number, but a channel finder, and you can find that button everywhere. And so to find Merit Street Media, you could put your zip code in there, and they want you to request it with the outlets that don't have it. DirecTV Stream has it. Myself, I just subscribe to it on YouTube. This is the way I take things in anyway. I want to see the clips. I don't tune into any TV and watch programming. So I'll just go through this and see a clip by clip, whatever.
Oh, I see. Okay. Is there, do you have to pay though is this a paid for subscription?
That's a good question. I don't think so. Because you're already paying for direct.
Oh, the cable or direct. Yeah. I see.
So a select few of them will be happy to put them on there because you may really want it. But I know probably a majority are going to be reluctant because this is way against mainstream media, way against the grain.
I wonder if Fire TV is down there.
Well, it depends what's your zip.
85298.
This is what you got. You got apps. Okay. Watch it.
Oh, there it is. Fire TV. There it is. All right, cool.
All right. Sign up for it. I know you're going to like it, Merle. I mean, I know
everything he's been saying lately. I've been like, wow. Fire. I like Dr. Phil. I didn't even realize I liked the guy because we've talked about this before. The show that he had before kind of made me angry.
Same. It did. But
now that I see him, it's like, wow, where'd this guy come from?
He just saw what was happening with our country. And it was, literally like at 2016, things went off the rails. When Trump got that nomination,
everything went crazy.
Convention.
Convention. The RNC. Yep.
Yes, correct. And this kind of reminds me of another story that we got, and that is about NPR, a former favorite of mine. What's this guy's name? Uri Berliner. And he was a former editor at there for 25 years. He just came out like, okay, let me tell you guys from my point of view, an independent, the only station I ever had on in my car was NPR for more than 10 years. But the day that Trump won the RNC, it changed. It changed overnight, and it was dramatic. It didn't take me long before I had to shut it off because they were in hysterics. All of a sudden, everything was race baiting. To me, it's the race station. If you want to, get your daily fill of how you're supposed to be racist while calling everyone else racist, there's your primer. That's how you learn that stuff. Well, yeah, Uri, he basically, I saw an interview of this, and he basically said that he loved the journalism that it was prior, that it was good, solid journalism, but left leaning. And I always loved it too. I absolutely loved NPR. And then they just absolutely lost their way. And some mentions that he made, I had a couple notes on this, but talked about the Russia collusion, that they popped that lie up. You could not talk about the lab leak theory, which is now, as we all know, is the common theory. I'm just repeating myself.
Yeah, everybody knows.
Yeah, everyone knows out of the bag. So there's just a number of things. If you talk about any of those race-related crimes like George Floyd and the ones that set off Black Lives Matter and all that, all of them completely clipped out of context and brought out in an kind of an irrational slant. And I'll just quote Greg Gutfeld again on that because I thought it was priceless. He says, the problem with all of this race baiting stuff, the racist stuff, they were trying to claim that America has a white supremacy problem and is very racist is there's a supply and demand problem. There's just not enough supply to hit the demand. And so we have to make up things and clip them out of context. With that, I'll get out of here.
I want to share something else along those lines is, Uri cites the new CEO of NPR and her views being very divisive, and that he can't work in an environment where he's being disparaged all the time. And I just want you to hear this. I think this is about a 12-second clip here of what her main premise is, which is pretty shocking. Hopefully this will come through. Let's go.
The number one challenge here that we see and is, of course, the First Amendment in the United States is a fairly robust protection of rights, and that is a protection of rights both for platforms, which I actually think is very important, that platforms have those rights to be able to regulate what kind of content they want on their sites. But it also means that it is a little bit tricky to really address some of the real challenges of where does bad information come from, and sort of the influence peddlers who have made a real market economy around it.
So there it is that she is anti-First Amendment. Yet, for sure, the First Amendment is wrapped all around news coverage and freedom of the press. What's interesting to me about NPR is that it is federally funded, and the fact that it's federally funded means that it should be a balanced approach. And what we're seeing here is very much what we've seen in the bureaucracies that were created in the last 100 years, that they are very much on the left side of the political spectrum. And really all of these bureaucratic organizations are, they were formed that way in the beginning by the progressives, and NPR has only gone down this track further and further. I used to think NPR wasn't a bad station, Barry, and I listened to some of those shows too. I never loved it, but I didn't think that it was harmful. But when you have somebody that leads that thinks that the First Amendment is a weapon formed against news, and that that the government has to do something about mis and disinformation, it becomes a scary proposition. In fact, what she's saying is that it's really organizations like NPR that should own the freedom of whether or not information is broadcast or not over their network, and that's their freedom of speech. That's really not how the founders had captioned that, and I think it's a dangerous precedent. And I'm really glad that we have people in our country like Uri that would stand up and have character, and even to his own detriment would stand up for what's right. So congratulations to him for that. I'm glad we know, because we wouldn't have known about this had that not happened. Go ahead, Barry.
No, that was obvious anyway, but all he did was put a stamp on what we all saw happen right in front of our eyes. Back when I was active on Facebook, I would say, I'd say, like, I used to listen to NPR. What happened to it? Everybody was on board with that. Like, yeah, can't listen to it anymore either. So we all knew it. To use a direct quote from him, he was talking about how he liked when it was solid journalism. Yes, it was left-leaning, but it was solid journalism, but now it's activism. That's a direct, it really is, from him. And that's really important to know. And I'm going to say, when you said it's federally funded, the leftists will come out and say, most of our funding is from donations and all that. Look, you still get federal funding, and you're an activist with an agenda that is completely unconstitutional. But what is it that's going on these days? I mean, Joe Biden trying to put out there, we're going to forgive your debt. He's trying to buy votes. It's the same tactic Gavin Newsom used. We're going to do reparations, even though he knows it's never going to go through. But he wants to get the black vote for that. That is disgusting.
It is disgusting. I agree.
Should just get people, just, if you want to use the word, disbarred, but I mean, like, immediately. But this isn't the America we used to live in.
No. And when you take a look, that loan forgiveness thing has really got my blood boiling, because first off, if you take a look at the Constitution, Article 2 is all about the executive office. There is no provision for the executive office having any charge of the purse strings of the public. That's not in there. And it's all delegated to Congress. And so how is it that he can keep doing this? You're right. This is criminal. In fact, the Supreme Court said he's not allowed to do this, yet he still does it. And now we're looking at something like 70% of people that have a college loan are looking at debt forgiveness right now. I mean,
it's just to buy votes. He knows it's not going to go through, but just to say it is going to get a lot of votes because it's a lot of in his favor. But it comes right back to, I know, I'm going to trigger everybody because I'm going to say Trump again, but take the emotion out of it. What has been going on now with this decade-old hush money thing again, while Biden's out campaigning, Trump is tied up in this BS. It's our taxpayer dollars at work for election interference again. And just like it was at two failed impeachment attempts, we got to straighten out this country. But I hate to go too far down that road.
But wait, what's interesting to me is that we going back to the debt forgiveness thing, that's part of his campaign. And that's campaign financing. Let's think about this for a second. You're financing your campaign with the tax dollars by bribing these people into voting for you. Yet we have our former president in a trial in New York right now, and it's all about campaign financing. That Stormy Daniels case is about campaign financing.
For sure.
And what happened is that even though the statute of limitations is up on this, they're saying that this payment to Stormy Daniels, which is hush money, was campaign financing that he took out of his own funds rather than using campaign finance funds. That's what this is about. And so he used his own money rather than money delegated to campaign financing. Okay, so now he can't go out and actually campaign because he's basically quarantined in this courtroom every day of the week, going for God knows how long. Yet Joe Biden illegally sequestered a big chunk of our tax dollars, not his own money, our money, and gave it to millions of people to get their votes. And that's okay. The double standard is dripping right now. And, I just have to say that as I think about it, and, if the shoe were on the other foot, Joe Biden is not the guy that I would vote for. But if my guy was in there and all these things were happening against that person's opponent, I would know that if we allow for that, then that can turn around and they can do the same thing to me down the road. Don't they realize the precedent that they're setting for themselves, the trap that they're setting for themselves right now?
I swear to God, Merle, if you're really brainwashed into that side full of hate, I think both extreme sides are just absolutely fueled by hate. And the other side is the hated enemy, and any means necessary to tamp down that tyrannical power that is trying to take us over so we can save democracy by becoming temporarily authoritarian.
Which is ridiculous. And we've seen how that never has worked in our past.
I know. I don't know what else to say about that. Do you
I have a way to shift gears right here.
Well, I do want to talk about Shellenberger's podcast.
I do too. I think that leads into exactly what we're talking about.
Well, you go ahead
on that way.
No, you go ahead.
I had some, normally at the beginning of the show, we talk about lighter things. We don't just dive into it.
I know, but I woke up to the most disturbing.
I know. And it's funny that you said that because, I'm 3 hours behind you. So last night I was looking at all of this and I saw your message this morning and I was like, oh my God, what else has happened? Not only World War III, but something else.
World War IV.
I wanted to talk about a couple of things here. One of them was this thing that we wanted to talk about love for just a minute here.
Well, please do. And buddy, did I already tell you? No, I have a show for you. And I got pulled up some images and stuff. So we'll talk about that later too. We got lighter stuff.
I think that during this time, you brought it up actually and reminded me that I wanted to talk about this, about politics, and they have no love in their heart. And
it's a fact.
I just want to turn back to love, because I really think that that's what's going to solve all of our problems here. Is the love has actually been stolen out of most of our hearts here, and our hearts are waxing cold, right? Mm-hmm. We look at our neighbors walking down the street and we're like, you know what I mean? Like, what happened? What happened? Yeah. Anyhow, and we've talked about this book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I saw this thing called 12 Powerful Lessons from the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I thought it would be fun to share this, because there were some kind of enlightening things to take a look at. So here's the first one. When a man can listen to a woman's feelings without getting angry and frustrated, he gives her a wonderful gift. I think that's kind of interesting.
Dude, I'm ninja there, because Lisa will admit it. It'll be hard for her to admit. But man, she talks for a long time at a stretch without taking a breath. And, and there are statistics that say that the average man can last at the most 7 minutes before his mind is elsewhere. Dude, I could go.
I get it. I don't even know what to say right here, because sometimes my wife
I'm in trouble right now. I'm always in trouble. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh, frozen.
We look what we're doing right now. But I run out of words. Yes. I run out of words, and Anne-Marie doesn't, and she can keep going. She's like the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, you know. Well, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and that's what you get. That's a big one.
I'd say I can regularly go for a 40-minute stretch and literally listen. And because I empathize, I mean, anything she tells me,
you are an empathizer.
But she, everything that she tells me, it's stuff I could tell that's been buried in her head that she needs to get out. And one thing leads to another, the whole thing. And I just find it interesting.
It is interesting how different we are and how differently our brains work. And this is the point of this, is that, we are different people in this world where we keep hearing that we're the same. We know that we're different. Here's the next one.
Yeah.
Men are motivated when they feel needed, while women are motivated when they feel cherished.
Wow. I almost don't know what to say to that, because, okay, I'll say this to that. I always fall back on the 5 love languages, and that I'm not sure I totally agree with that, because that's saying that we all have the same love language in a way. And I don't. And,
that is interesting.
Yeah, learning that there was some people express loves through giving gifts, some through acts of service, doing things for the other, and Lisa loves that. Could you reread that? Reread that, please.
Yeah, but I think it still falls into this. Men are motivated when they feel needed, while women are motivated when they feel cherished. And those 2 examples that you gave would cause a woman to feel cherished.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And we are motivated when we feel needed.
We're more utility, right?
Yeah,
like,
we are,
I need you for this. I need you. Come save me.
I feel like a slave most of the time.
We're needed.
Just trying to dig myself into
as one.
I know. I dig myself in a deeper hole. I literally threw that out there for that reason.
Here's one.
I will say.
Go ahead.
I will say that as Lisa and my relationship has evolved over time, and it needed to greatly, we found ourselves, we thought we would share responsibilities and all of that, and it caused a lot of friction. And I just follow like her lead. She's just always like pushing to get her way into what it emerged as is traditional roles for the most part. And I'm willing to do a lot more cleaning and a lot more this, that, and the other, but she doesn't think I clean good enough. So she takes that on. She's like, no, you go wash the cars, clean out the garage, scrape and paint the basement. It just really worked out in the very traditional roles.
You know what? I have a similar thing. Anne Marie and I, when we get ready for company or whatever, we have our roles that we've fallen into, and we just know what to do. And she has her thing, I have mine, and we whip it out together. Yeah. And that collaboration that we have together, I think that's the most important thing here about the whole Mars and Venus, is that it takes it when you put those two together, you cover the whole gamut. And being able to respect and work with our differences, we cover everything. Right. And for us men, going back to number one, we have to just be patient, and they have to be patient with us. They're frustrated with us in the way that we think.
No, it's very true. But there's nothing better than when making big decisions to have both of us together to arrive at it, because we think so differently and we come at things. So when you have really important decisions, it's awesome to have a partner to bounce those off of.
I agree. And here's one that goes back to your earlier comments, and I think this is interesting. Men need to remember that women talk about problems to get close and not necessarily to get solutions.
Oh, I know that one all too well. I know that one all too well. And I mean, I learned that a long time ago, is that we are wired to try to fix things. And so when we hear the problems, we want to give a solution. And boy, I tread lightly on that. I usually say, I'm not sure how to respond to that, but it seems to me, instead of straight ahead hammer on a nail. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And here's something I think is interesting. And I think this is a really powerful lesson, because sometimes I feel like I don't like to hear complaining, because that's how men are. Don't complain about that. Right. But they're not complaining. This is her getting closer to me. And that's her motivation. So if we remember that that's the motivation, we can look at those comments way differently.
You're right.
We can think together.
Because when they're doing that, they're sharing their inner feeling. To them, it's intimate.
That's right. And think about how and so it's really hard for us to think like a woman, but you would imagine the vulnerabilities there that women may not want to share. There are things that bother them, but their spouse that they feel safe with, they can open up those kinds of things. So this is a whole different way of looking at it. I think this is very insightful. Here's something. Mental chemistry creates interest. Emotional chemistry generates affection. Physical chemistry generates desire, and spiritual chemistry creates love. That's a mouthful.
That's a whole lot. I'm really going to have to ask you to go run through that.
Mental chemistry creates interest. Okay.
Sure. Of course it does.
Emotional chemistry generates affection. Emotional chemistry generates affection.
It could also generate the opposite.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different emotions.
Well, true. Physical chemistry generates desire. That seems obvious.
Yeah, that's obvious.
And spiritual chemistry generates love.
That's
I hadn't heard that before.
I haven't either.
Spiritual we don't have to agree with everything this person says, but that is very interesting. Yeah. Well, let's move on to the next one. Men primarily need trust, acceptance, appreciation, admiration, approval, and encouragement. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would. That's a
women
mouthful
primarily. It is trust, acceptance, appreciation, admiration, approval, and encouragement. I think
it all sounds right.
And I think about sports and how, early on in life, a lot of us young men get a lot of our acceptance and appreciation and admiration through sports and achievement. Here's the women primarily need caring, understanding, respect, devotion, validation, and reassurance. A whole different
kind of no, it's not too different words. There's a lot of synonyms there. Sure, they need respect, reassurance, I mean, I think that trust.
I think a man wants respect as well. Yeah. So there's some. You're right. All right. Well, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
In her younger years, a woman is much more willing to sacrifice and mold herself to fulfill her partner's needs. In a man's younger years, he's much more self-absorbed and unaware of the needs of others.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And let me just we won't spend a whole lot more time on this. Let's go to the next one. To feel better, Venusians get together and openly talk about their problems. To feel better, Martians go to their caves and solve problems alone.
Okay, could you read that again? Because the Venusians, I'm sitting there thinking, what's a Venusian?
Women are from Venus.
I got it now.
To feel better, women get together and openly talk about their problems, but men go to their caves to solve problems alone.
Kind of. Yeah, some
I
do,
don't think
some
that's
don't.
I don't think
universal.
That's a rule. Yeah, because you and I, we've gotten together a bunch of times. Like, oh my gosh, this is happening.
You're like my first go-to, right?
Yeah. I get that.
And Lisa will. Honestly, she comes to me mostly, and she does talk to her friends, but I think we talk it out a lot. I mean, different problems for sure. So I think different people rank differently on that one. Let's see the next one.
How about the more a man loves a woman, the more he needs her approval?
Probably.
I gotta say, I think that's right.
Okay, I'd say probably.
If I didn't care about my wife, I wouldn't care what she thought. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. There's a common sense approach to that, right?
Yeah. Okay. But when you love somebody, there's, if Anne-Marie can just look at me and I'm destroyed if she looks at me the wrong way, you know what I mean? Like, her approval and encouragement is like supercharged gasoline in my tank.
Nice.
And like if she's given me like an attaboy kind of thing, I feel like I could run a marathon.
I agree. I mean, I agree. It's I respect Lisa's intelligence so much that when she thinks I'm on the right path for something, it's incredibly fueling.
Oh, this one's a good one, Barry. Men argue for the right to be free, while women argue for the right to be upset. Men
okay, wait a minute.
Right to be free, while women argue for the right to be upset. Go ahead.
The right to be upset then would say to me that we may not understand how intense something seems to them, because sometimes their feelings for something to us is like, I don't really get it. And then they're offended that you don't feel the way that they feel. So they are. And Lisa explained things 8 ways to Sunday, the same thing. And it's like, that's one of those, like the 40-minute marathon. And whereas I just will be like kind of real direct about things, but men argue for freedom. I think I do. Freedom's so important. It's like a core value for me in every regard.
It really is. It brings me back to Braveheart. I mean, even when that guy's guts were being pulled out, he was yelling freedom. And that is how we are. But, sometimes, your spouse will be upset about something and you'll say, oh, it's not a big deal. And they're mad because you said it wasn't a big deal. You're trying to help them to feel better, but they have a whole different thought process in how they deal with these things.
And we're not understanding in that moment.
We're not in sync. We're not in sync. We march to a whole different drummer on this kind of thing. And realizing that is powerful. If we can realize our difference, see, that's a whole thing, Barry. And this is why I brought this up, is because today we're so focused on trying to be the same. Women and men are the same. No, we don't look the same. We have different functions in life, and we don't think the same. We are designed differently, and it does make sense. The title of the book, that we're almost from different planets.
Well, it's not only that, but the age-old expression, "Your better half." It is. We're two halves of the same coin. Thank God.
Oh my God.
That's what I said when it comes to making important decisions. My My dear Uncle Jim went into the hospital a week or two ago, and he's had back pain, surgeries, all kinds of surgeries on his back. It's bad, and he got diagnosed with the stage 4 cancer. So we've been going through a big struggle. Went there to see him in the hospital, and my Aunt Shar is telling me about how they went in for these back problems. Nobody could figure out what was going on, and they were just feeling like they were in the wrong place and not getting the right care, and they needed to move him. And these are big decisions. My Uncle Jim's out of it, sedated and all these other things, right? He's not available. And Char's explaining to, and they figure my cousin Jeff and his son Seth really stepped up to the occasion. And Seth hugged her and said, "We'll be here. It's going to be okay. We'll work this out." Jeff took off work, filled in that role. But Shar explained to me, I have this major, the most important decision of our lives to make here, what to do with this healthcare. And I don't have my partner to make this decision with. That is what I mean about the importance of our partners to be able to make joint decisions, because we are two sides of a coin. And when it comes together, you do have the whole. It's really important. And kudos to my family for them coming together and getting through this. The prognosis is that he's going to get radiation treatment that, you don't cure stage 4 cancer usually unless an act of a miracle. But he's also 79 years old, and he's given maybe 1 to 2 years to live, and told him to live as much as possible.
Wow.
Don't go home and sit around, live. And so this was, long story short, this is all about what you were saying about us being different and how it's better that we come together to utilize each other for decision-making purposes. But I opened up a can of worms. So I just want to let you know that I found the prognosis to be very relieving when I thought I was saying goodbye, which was in a text that I received. I found out I'm going to say hello again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Well, life is really something. And I like how you tied that story into what we were talking about. And that's just an example of how serious this is. And how important it is in our relationships to respect how the other opposite sex thinks. Mm-hmm. And when we know these things, we can show a greater form of love for each other.
And understanding, and it gives us forgiveness. And
back to our country and this world that we live in, I really believe that 90% of the problems that we're facing today can be solved with this love for one another. And I think it starts in the family. And the family is the core unit of success for the world. And if we're able to fix our families and love on our families, then that love can be poured out to our neighbors. But we have to fix our families first.
Sure. Ourselves first.
I think that fixing ourselves and fixing our families is important, because if you don't have good family life, it could lead to psychosis pretty easily.
But it also means your attention will never leave that nucleus, because it has to be there. It's
right. This is where your foundation is, right?
Yeah. Then you start looking outward.
That's exactly right.
I have a friend, Atlanta Jeff. I've always said this about him. He is the kind of guy that could come into town and meet a bunch of people at a party, and then come back 2 years later and be like, "Hey, so how's that thing going on? How's that going on?"
I love that.
How's that? Because he was just a blessed person. He's, everybody loves Raymond. It's everybody loves Jeff. He's never had a problem. He's just, everything's been, so his needs have always been taken care of. So he's always looking outward. I've always admired that about him. And
I love that.
Yeah. So you got to, it's like that you're on the airplane, the mask comes down, put it on your own face first, because you're no good to anybody else around you until your immediate needs are taken care of. That's
Man, that's such a, I almost use the same analogy. That is such a great analogy for that kind of thing. You are exactly right. Boy, time is moving by so quickly, Barry. I want to be able to talk about this podcast that we watched, which was the Glenn show, the April 12th edition with Michael Shellenberger. And this one was called the Censorship Industrial Complex.
Yeah, it was so good.
You sent this over to me and I saw the title and you said, you're going to love this. And I was like, and first off, I love Michael Shellenberger.
Me too. Let's explain that he was a very far leftist journalist, but journalism came first. And when I say far left, he would say, I heard him on Rogan 2 weeks after the Twitter files came out. He was one of the 3 or 4 reporters that were given access to the Twitter files and what was divulged. And he was explaining how, definitely a leftist, always lifelong leftist, but I didn't cross any certain lines. But Rogan goes, well, what do you mean I was a leftist? And he goes, when did that change? He goes, 2 weeks ago, when I got access to the Twitter files.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So he's still left leaning.
Yeah.
You wouldn't call him a leftist. He's more, I'd say you'd probably call him a classic liberal.
That's interesting because I would have thought, I'd never heard that, but I would have thought more that he was a liberal and on the left rather than, because I see leftists as not loving America.
Agreed.
They want to fundamentally change it into something else. And when I hear him speak, I hear him espousing the fundamental principles of America. And he might have a different way of getting to them, but he certainly espouses those beliefs about America. But boy, am I ever happy that he was chosen to do the Twitter files.
Yeah.
And then when you listen to what he's talking about this whole thing for censorship, boy, we live in this era where, of course, he was part of discovering the censorship that was going on X. I mean, Twitter at the time. And now, it opens up this whole ball of wax where you can see this has been happening. It's obviously happening at Google, at Facebook,
remember the NPR interview you just played?
Everything. It's happening with everything.
And they're hiding behind terms of really convenient terms like misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech. All amounts to it amounts to censorship. Hey, you're on our team. You don't want people talking about that. It's misinformation or disinformation or hate speech. So therefore we can censor it to make the world a better place. Oh, this
is sort of like the whole concept of we've got to save democracy by acting like a tyrannical government. This is which never
That's exactly works. Like that.
But one of the things that he brought up in his talk, and really this guy is so smart, and he's really great at telling the story. But he's writing a new book, and in the book he is talking about how narcissists and psychopaths are seemingly running our world right now. And I thought that it was interesting when he talked about narcissism and how entitlement and narcissism go together.
For sure.
I thought that it was interesting also when he started to talk about how, when he started to give examples of what he meant by entitlement. BLM. And he talked about like these college movements that are happening right now, and you're seeing our colleges blowing up right now, especially over this crisis that is happening between Israel and Palestine. And so what he's saying is that it is narcissistic. This is the environment in these college campuses is extremely narcissistic, because if you're a person that has a strong opinion but does not believe that somebody else has the right to espouse their opinion, that's the root of narcissism.
For sure.
That you're better than these other people. You know more than these other people, and therefore they don't have the same rights as you have.
And entitlement. that you
That's
are
what
entitled,
entitlement is, right?
Entitled to dehumanize somebody. He was talking about the BLM movement, the footage of these people surrounding this particular woman having a glass of wine in a cafe, and these people with their fists up in the air say, Black Lives Matter, say it. He goes, it looked like a Nazi rally.
Well, the interesting thing about that story too was that the woman was interviewed later who admitted that she had marched in Black Lives Matter marches, and so
she was white.
But she was being accosted by these people,
bullied,
really,
and dehumanized.
I mean, and it's crazy. And this goes back to, remember I was telling you about Mao's America, and what was her name again? She Van Fleet. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about the struggle sessions, which are exactly this, where a group of people surround somebody and bully them and harass them for their beliefs. Sometimes it leads to violence, and sometimes it would lead to death. And we're seeing this whole thing happening right here. And this is a form of censorship. You cannot espouse your opinion without the threat of violence happening or extreme shame.
Maxine Waters is good for espousing that.
Oh, yeah. Well, did you see Maxine Waters recently talking about how, I mean, here's a person who said, if you see any of these MAGA Republicans, I don't think she said MAGA at the time, but that's who she was talking about. You tell them they're not welcome anywhere. If you see them in the stores, in the streets, and harass them, get in their face. Then I saw her recently talking in an interview saying that she finds that this bigotry against her because she's a Black woman is intolerable, that people will come up to her and they won't say prejudiced things, but they'll disagree vehemently with what she said. And she says that's racism.
Yeah, and AOC uses the sexist card.
Are you kidding me?
So
it's racist to disagree with you? What kind of that's, again,
this
weaponized. Is a form of censorship.
It's weaponized identity politics.
So it really is. And this is a tactic that's being used against us. So, Barry.
Not as much as it used to be. This is a year we're turning around. I'm sorry, you're going to ask me a question. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, because it seems like this is the route that they're using.
Have been for a long time.
As a spiritual movement.
Oh, right. Correct. It's totally a religious movement.
And Shellenberger gets into
climate change. Yeah.
Yes. Shellenberger gets into this, but it's interesting that we were watching the George Soros interview, which was, what was that? The reflexive alchemy of George Soros with James Lindsay from New Discourses, and he did that one a couple of weeks ago. But he brings up the same kind of general subject of there is a spiritual aspect of this. Well, George Soros says that he's God. Okay,
there's that.
And I'll talk about narcissism. If you're God, then you're entitled to change society. You're entitled to tinker around with things. He even has an agenda to change people's value system.
Not hard to do. You shake up society, get people at war, everything's upside down, throw the racism in, and when things that look so bleak, you dangle a little carrot. Here's the solution. Kind of here's what we do. And that's going to be an authoritarian type of government.
And when you feel that you're in charge of manipulating people's value systems, that's a God complex right there. And what we have is a cult. And the occult is any type of institution that looks at being God in your life that is a false God. And this is what these guys are all about. And what we're seeing here is a tremendous spiritual movement that's happening across the country, across the world, really, where it's really about who is God. And man's desire to be God or lord themselves over other people. It seems like that's really what's happening, and it's all about worldview.
I think it's just a little different because we're in a day and age, largely thanks to the Catholic Church, where people don't trust religion and they're really in their infancy of doing this. So they sound really smart when they say, oh, you believe this guy in the sky that you can't see, and they say all these other things. So that makes them feel really, really smart. But they don't realize that they have this gaping hole of needed guardrails and values, and those things get fed slowly by mainstream media or other media about the climate change. Okay, so instead of this God, this imaginary being in the sky, no, it's Mother Earth. And we're harming Mother Earth, and we got to take care of Mother Earth. And it gets irrational to the point of, well, if you really believe that stuff, and if you believe in science, as you like to say, then you'd realize windmills and what's the other one? The solar panels aren't going to do it. If you really believed in all that, you'd go nuclear, but they'd have to pick up a book. And I mean, so you would have to do some research, and it's so much easier to be able to just push this agenda. You don't have to read anything and call your opponents racist and sexist or an ism when they disagree with you. That's where we're at right now.
Well, that's right. And it's like, if you don't have the same worldview of the situation, then you're going to be ostracized. You're going to be censored. You're going to be kicked to the curb. That's really what a cult religion is. And it seems like they're not calling it that,
right? But
that is what it is. You have exactly what Michael Shellenberger talked about, is that, you know, we use climate change as the example, and you just said it perfectly. That these people are bowing down to that dogma.
Oh, by the way, a couple things,
and also reason and facts are out the window.
That's my point.
You cannot use reason. You cannot use facts. You have to believe this with blind faith. And that is what we're seeing right now. Go ahead. If
your climate agenda was truly your number one thing, you would embrace nuclear, because that's the only way you're going to get clean, sustainable, and safe. They don't think it's safe. It's the safest form of energy that we have today. So you would start there instead of Germany depowering all their plants, which is dumb as anything, because all the poor people pay the price. The other thing is, then you would certainly see right through this whole electric car mandate, because that's only a primer for 15-minute cities. They actually passed that mandate because all these dummies don't read a book or listen to a smart podcast. And this is why I always say, if you really believe that crap, then you would push the hybrid cars, because it's not going to do anything to the infrastructure. I mean, that's the smart way. But you push the mandate for electric cars. Oh, the infrastructure can't handle it, so you can't have cars. 15 minutes.
That's it. That's it. The 15, and so therefore, I don't even know if we've ever talked about 15-minute cities before on the show.
I'm not sure.
But yeah. I mean, basically, you're not going to be able to get more than 15 minutes away from your house, and that's going to be it. And your credit card, your money isn't, because everything's going to be electronic, isn't going to work outside of that zone. So this is the perfect way. Now everybody's going to have to live in these cities. We're not going to have people living out in they hate the suburbs. They want to urbanize the suburbs. It is a crazy notion that's going on. But again, this is world-changing stuff based on a worldview that just really is anti-human.
And it leads into something that I started to talk about in our last podcast that was such a mess. But I ran across this. If you recall, I ran across this group called Strong Towns. And as we're talking about 15-minute cities, so I got a Facebook notification about this. I don't know why. I hardly ever get Facebook notifications. So I started reading about it. Everybody has an opportunity to live. Now, the premise was thrown in front of my face, that this is about giving power back to the small towns, giving, governmental strength, taking it away from the state or what have you. And so at first I'm thinking, okay, inverted pyramid. I like that, because right now the federal government is the largest organization in the world. Very bad, very, very bad for everybody and everything. And we talk about the states need to take their power, get their power back away, because all these different territories are very different. And that's how it should be. And it should keep funneling down right to the gated community. Let's say that's a communist community where you opt into, I'm saying it, basically it is, where you opt into a very small community that has the values that you like. So you can sign that contract and be like, okay, I feel safe in this kind of a community. And so that's what this kind of sounded like. But the more I thought about it, I didn't read a ton about it. Let's see, the way we develop our cities, this suburban experiment, is bankrupting us and endangering our neighborhoods through a nationwide housing crisis, dangerously designed streets, a lack of transparency in city finances, endless highway expansion, and huge wasteful parking lots. Okay, there's all this different stuff. Like I said, I wanted to get you to take a look at this, and then maybe we could talk about it more in another podcast. But half of me thinks, and we will, I'm going to wind that up because I didn't dig deep enough to know. Half of me thinks that is a really good thing. It's like the 050 community, retirement community that I've talked about, Lisa, and I've been talking about forever, which is about more of a self-sustainability, taking the power away from the government and other institutions, big business as much as possible. Is that what that is? Or is this a primer for 15-minute cities? I'm not sure.
Huh. You know what? We'd have to get more into it because you could be right. But the thought pattern that you have is exactly what the founders of America, that was their thought pattern, that you would have that you basically, we can govern
personal
ourselves.
Personal responsibility, and then it permeates. Yeah.
You're exactly right. The whole premise here, which is different than any other country before it, is that there's a thing about sovereignty, right? Like a king is sovereign over his nation, right? He's the master of his nation. And so here in America, we as individuals are sovereign. I am sovereign over my own body. Okay. That's never been before. In human history, people were not, there's always been a king over them, and you were at the mercy of the king. That's really what it is. And so real freedom is that really we don't need to be governed according to God. Your governor is God. And so your rights all come from God, not from the king. And this whole manner of thinking means that your family governs itself, but of course there's government that's needed. So the strongest government that's there is what you're a part of, is in your community, your local neighborhood, your city, all around. That's where the strongest forms of government are. And as it gets into these wider circles like the state and federal government, the government becomes weaker.
It should be just a wireframe at that point.
That's exactly. And so when you think about how this country was formed, you had under the Articles of Confederation, which is what our Constitution was at first until 1787, under the Articles of Confederation, the federal government didn't even have a budget. It's really the whole concept of our country is a strong local government, strong state government, which gives us so much more control and freedom in our lives, and the things that are most important locally get done. It's a concept that's lost on many young Americans today. They don't understand how important that is. I had a recent conversation with a guy, probably about 30 years old, and he's lived here in Arizona all his life. And he was telling me that he didn't think that tax laws should be different in different states, that they should all be the same, and that we probably shouldn't even have state government since we have a strong federal government. What's the need for that? We can just uniform this whole thing and everything will be great.
As you say, uniform. Let's pass out uniforms and give a choice of 3 different hairstyles. And
everything will look like Idiocracy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I'll go to my paper towel roll, and boom, there's my new shirt. Just kind of looks like those shirts in that show too, actually.
So how did you explain this to this guy?
Okay, so this was really fun. And I said, I used to wonder the same things that you're wondering, like, why make this so complicated? I don't really understand this. And it wasn't until I moved to California that I absolutely realized how important this was. And I asked him, have you live here in Arizona? How long? All my life I've lived here. Okay, here's the deal. And then I started explaining some of the things that happened in California and how unsafe it got, and how pretty soon it turned into a third world country with shanties all up and down my street, no law enforcement, drugs everywhere, murder, gunshots, all this kind of stuff. And there's nothing I could do about it. Thank God the whole country didn't look like that. And I had some place to come. And I'm so happy to be here in Arizona, so happy to be here in Phoenix under a whole different government system. And when he listened to that, and he took a step back and he says, your lived experience is valuable to me to understand. And now I get what you're saying here, that it is important. I never looked at it that way before.
That's really nice.
Because he didn't have the experience, right?
He didn't, but he also didn't, where's he wasn't educated on it either. That's my point. I didn't want to say it in a bad way. Where's he getting his information?
Right. He went to school, he went to college. How come no one taught him that? Did anybody teach me that when I went to school? Maybe. It seemed like I learned most of these lessons after I got out of school and lived my life and experienced things out there. And here's this young guy, he hasn't had any of these experiences. And we can learn these things in school, but experience is actually the thing that's going to lock those lessons in.
Oh, for sure. I learned everything about, I went to school for graphic design, and then I got out, joined an agency, and realized I didn't know anything. I learned some good artistic basics, but I knew nothing about the business. I knew nothing about the execution until I got out. Now, going back, tying this back into the Shellenberger interview on Glenn Loury's show, and I just this morning at the gym listened to James Lindsay's New Discourses. His latest podcast just came out this morning. It's on Mao. And I forget the exact title of it. It seems to be a second parter, a follow-up to a previous podcast, which I will go back and listen to. But it was really, really excellent, of course. And it's only about 20 minutes, by the way. So I'm just going to give you a little primer, because maybe we'll come back and talk about it. But he really explains about Mao's techniques for division and dividing everybody up, how we're using it in our society today. And it just felt like it went hand in hand with the Shellenberger podcast, Glenn Loury's. So I just encourage you and anybody else to go subscribe to James Lindsay's New Discourses podcast. For God's sakes, it's such a good podcast.
Man, that guy is really a deep thinker.
But he explains it very well.
Oh, he really does. I never really listened to him before, but I felt like I was a lot smarter after I listened to him.
And you and I have discussed his stuff even a lot more together on the phone outside of this podcast, not just on this podcast, because we've been so moved by as much as we've found out. Merle, I
got something just to bring up on the Shellenberger thing, and I thought this was an interesting discourse between Glenn and Michael, but it had to do with this hearing that's going on in the Supreme Court right now regarding censorship and how the Biden administration was censoring all these social media accounts. I think it's called something like Madison versus Missouri or something like that. It used to be named Biden versus Missouri. Yeah, they heard the case, so they're going to make decisions on it, I think, in June. But during the case, Ketanji, whatever her name is, Brown, I think her name is. She's the new Supreme Court justice. She was saying that. Shouldn't the government have responsibility to censor disinformation?
Oh, that bothers me so much that she would even ask that.
Well, Why? You tell. I have the same response, but you tell me why you feel that way.
Okay, a couple of. First of all, I think that case is about the government using dispatchers instead of saying they're doing it. They're censoring themselves. They're having other people do it for them. They're just suggesting. That's exactly right. Yeah, yes. That's BS.
Yeah, suggesting.
Right.
We're suggesting that you.
Yeah, Shellenberger did a really good job. We've done this on the podcast before about explaining the importance of free speech. And I mean, for me, it'll always come back to if you follow the path all the way down, it'll always come back to it's the oppressed only way of expressing themselves and bringing awareness to a problem. Now, the left is turning everything around right now, and they really want to oppress white people and men in particularly, and silence us. And our opinion is not, we're dehumanize us. And that will be done through censorship. And at the end of the day, if you want to look historically, women's rights came because they had freedom of speech. Minority rights, gay rights, anything else would never have happened if they didn't have the ability of free speech. So how do you count? What about all that horrible speech? What about the KKK on Facebook? Are you kidding me? Well, it gives you an opportunity to know what they're saying and know how to find them. And so, yeah, don't bury them underground. There's nothing more dangerous than something that is covert.
Man, that is such a great point you're making, Barry. And I remember when Shellenberger was making that point about the court case that allowed the KKK to march in Skokie, Illinois. And that's an interesting case. I think it happened in the 70s. Skokie, Illinois is 90% Jewish population. And this is where these KKK Nazis wanted to march, and they were allowed to by the court. And I agree with that decision, by the way.
I do too.
As long as they're not threatening and saying we're going to murder you,
of course,
they can say what their opinion is. And this is why I liked what Michael Shellenberger was saying, is the answer to mis and disinformation is not censorship the way our government's knee-jerk reaction has been. The answer is tell the truth.
Better information.
Yeah,
and I like what you're saying.
The truth.
The truth you can always win a debate with if you have your argument thought out well. But if your line of thinking really isn't very defensible, that's when you want to censor.
Well, and you're exactly right. And here's the deal: is if you're telling the truth, then evidence should back that up, right?
That's exactly
and so
right.
When we're having these debates about what's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's not, then we should be able to reason these things by using evidence.
Correct.
And evidence will give the ring and the shine on the truth. And so that is really what our country is based on. That's right. It's the First Amendment. Our whole country is based on the fact that we are not afraid of lies, because in the light of truth, the lies will be exposed. And so if we decide as a government, and we are the government as a people, if we decide as a government that some information is okay to be out, but other information is not, well, now you have a nanny state.
Yeah, and they're pushing for it bad.
Why would they do that? Because under a nanny state, certain people have more liberty and more freedom, and the majority of people just don't have it.
And here's the wicked part of that is, first, you're guaranteed. This is what Mao did. He's verbally pushing for women's rights. Doesn't that sound great? Oh, you don't think that sounds great? Oh, then you're against us. No, we're all for it. Next thing you know, they're all starving to death. It's a bait and switch. And it always is.
It's interesting that you're saying this, because it's really important what you're saying, Barry, about Mao. Everybody should be studying Mao right now and understand what he stood for, because we're running into the exact same things that are happening right here. And you take a perceived oppressed group and you can pick any group right now.
We got plenty of them.
Trans.
Yeah.
That's the big one right now. But you take that group and then you manipulate that whole thing, which really oppresses everybody else and disunites the whole community, which makes it easier for the leader to control things and be in charge. It's very narcissistic. That's really what it is, and which is evil. Yeah. And we saw where millions and millions of people were murdered or starved to death as a result. In fact, every one of these groups that they say they're helping always gets hurt. Look at the Black community here in America and the civil rights movement that happened. Before the civil rights movement happened, you had 80% of Black families in the United States that had two parents in the home. You had a 20-year period of time where you had exponential growth in wealth in the Black community. And when the Civil Rights Act passes, everything starts to slow down dramatically for Black progress, even with the agenda for equal opportunity, where it was like we have a quota of how many Black people we have. That hurt Black people as well, to this point where now you have the reverse. You've got 80% of children that are in Black families growing up without two parents in the home.
That's awful.
And you've got wealth in the Black community going in a different direction here. So all of this help actually hurt the Black community. And I want to bring something else up here, because I heard Charles Barkley and Stephen A. Smith speaking the other day. And I thought it was interesting. I don't really care for Charles Barkley or Stephen A. Smith. I don't like those two guys.
I know who they are, but I don't.
Yeah, they're basically guys that have a chip on their shoulder about being Black and everything's not fair. And, we didn't get this when we were growing up and blah, blah, blah. But they made a point the other day that I saw on X that I thought, that's interesting. What they were talking about is all of these Africans that are coming across our border scot-free, getting a free smartphone, getting a debit card that just keeps getting loaded up with money.
It's our money.
Free healthcare, getting even free jobs, free housing. Yeah. And they're like,
how is that fair to anybody?
We're Black in America. We both grew up in the ghetto. We're citizens of this country, and none of us got anything like this.
Right.
And so when you look at this whole thing, it's an interesting thing. Why are these Africans who are Black getting better treatment than Black people in America? And I've really been thinking about this, and I thought about my whole experience being Black in America and growing up in an all-white neighborhood and not really knowing any Black people except for my family, and then going to college and looking forward to meeting Black people. And I remember I met a bunch of Africans and tried to be friends with them. They did not like me. And I started to find out that they don't like Black people in America. And I'm not saying everybody. I'm saying that this is what I've run into, is that they've got a complex about they feel like they're superior to Black people in America for a couple of reasons. One is that almost all of us have white blood on the inside of us.
Yeah, for sure.
Not only that, but they feel like their discipline and their upbringing and their country way better than ours. So you don't have, they call us African Americans, right? But I don't know any Africans. I'm not from Africa. I don't know anybody over there. And so we're not the same. The whole Black experience here in this country is very unique to any other place in the world. People in Africa that look like they're Black, they're Africans. They don't have any shared experience that we as Black Americans have. And so what is our federal government doing with these people? Are these the replacements for Blacks here in America? Of course, these people are all going to get the right to vote. There's no doubt about that in my mind. And that's going to fundamentally change this country into something that we've never seen before. And these people are going to be counted as Black. Mm-hmm. So does Joe Biden get the Black vote? now that they brought in all these Africans, and the black people here in this country have left the Democrat Party in droves. Is that what's happening? I have no idea, Barry, but it is very interesting.
Well, I think that it's part of the Soros thing. Like, I don't think you got one.
I think you're right.
I think from Biden's point of view, that regime's point of view, that it is the great replacement theory for sure. They're trying to get votes that they otherwise can't. They cannot win after the disaster that has been Joe Biden. I mean, and everybody seems to forget about Afghanistan. Just want to remind everybody of that.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was the worst thing ever.
So you got Biden wanting to keep it open under those pretenses, the Biden regime, I should say, the deep state. You got China sending over all kinds of young Chinese men over here to infiltrate the country. Russia wants to disrupt us in every way possible. And George Soros wants a complete chaos of the entire country so he can reshape the government. So all of these different people all want the same thing, the destruction of our freedom of democracy, but for all different reasons. But in the end, they don't care how it happens, just that it happens.
Well, you're bringing up a great point here. We both read this article from Badlands Media. The deep state needs Trump to win. And shocking, the deep state needs Trump to win. And
Trump is like their worst nightmare in a way. So explain what that's about.
Well, here's the deal is that we've had this pendulum effect here in the United States for, decades, really since the beginning. And what this article is saying is that the deep state has actually been running things for a long time. At least all of our lives. And when you have two presidential candidates that are coming up to be for the election, both of the candidates have already been pre-selected by the deep state. So it doesn't really matter which one you pick.
I know most people will think that's way too conspiracy theorist. Here's what I'm going to say to soften the blow on that one. It doesn't really matter to them that much. 4 years of this side or that side doesn't really matter. They can just shuffle along with that, but they really ultimately have control of what's going on.
I think it's interesting though, because they go into this whole thing where they're saying, they switch from one to another, but in the end, both sides completely supplement the military-industrial complex.
Yes, that's
what they're saying is that the
you
deep
don't have
state
to look any further than what's just going on with what's his name, Mike Johnson.
Right, that's exactly right. Mm-hmm. It's that these are neocons. They're not actually conservatives. They're neocons, and they are serving the deep state. Well, the first time there's this article is saying the first time a deep state candidate did not get elected is when Trump came into office, and they never thought that could happen. And he actually did things. I mean, his whole premise was to destroy the deep state, right? Mm-hmm. Well, now the whole thing is that these people are like a parasite, and they thrive off of the success of America. The deep state is the like parasite, that, right? And
America is the host.
That's exactly right. And if the host dies, right, then the parasite can't survive. So it needs the host to live. And now the deep state has come to the realization that Joe Biden is going to kill the host. And therefore, they are now switching to the only alternative they have to keep the host alive, which they know now is going to be Trump. So we're seeing this whole thing playing out. I loved in the article how they made a comparison to our politics that we've been running here in America to the WWE, where everything, it looks like you have a good guy and a bad guy. You've got the crowd divided, one or the other.
In the WWE, they always have, okay, you're going to be the heel. That's the bad guy. Who's going to lose? and then you got the winner. And I just wanted to play that.
Well, it's interesting because what they said was, these guys are arch enemies and they do all these things in the ring, but afterwards they go out and have a beer together and they laugh. They're really friends.
Yeah.
It's interesting because my son and daughter both love the WWE, and I took my son to a WWE event where we had really ringside seats. I've never had seats like that before. And it was fun. But what I saw, which I thought was interesting, is as these guys are wrestling, and there were several venues, but as these guys are wrestling, I could hear them talking to each other and telling each other what the next move was going to be.
Yeah.
Which you don't see that on TV. Right. And but that's our politics, right? That's the analogy. That's what's happening. This whole thing has been kabuki theater until now.
It is. And I think a whole lot of the younger elected people that go to Washington think that they really are doing their job, that they don't realize that it's truly orchestrated underneath of their feet. So I just don't want to paint such a cartoonish picture that we elect people, they go in and then they are shown a bunch of films on how this really works. And then they play this role. That's not how it works. But you get to a Nancy Pelosi level, a Mike Johnson level, and these key players, oh yeah, they're being strongly persuaded to do what they're supposed to do.
Well, when I take a look at like Bush Clinton, right? I was fooled, Barry. I thought they were different, really in two different camps, two very, very different camps. And I was fooled. They're in the same camp. They're in the exact same camp. They're the same. They accomplish the same things. And then you saw how they were friends. I thought they were enemies. They talked so poorly about each other, and the Obamas as well. I don't know, Barry.
I could see what you're saying about Bush and Clinton. I always got the feeling about Obama is he was just played and played. It's like, okay, yeah, you're the president. You're great. And you do this. And then the American people are just like, oh my God, giving him accolades after accolade. His ego went through the freaking roof. And I think the deep state just played that the whole entire time.
When you think about his dad, George H.W. Bush, remember that
let's talk about Obama.
Well, I know, but these guys are all related. Is my point is if you think about George H.W. Bush, and which led to George Bush and Clinton and then Obama, H.W. Bush, he was the head of the CIA.
Oh, sure.
And so you take a look at the history of the CIA and how they have manipulated the entire world for decades now. I'm reading this book called The Final Analysis, which is going into the Kennedy assassination. And I mean, it's so clear that these people usurped our government and took over. And it does look like they put these people. How does the head of the CIA become the president? How does his son get into office where he's got his handler? What was the vice president's name again? That was George Bush's handler right there. I mean, these guys with Halliburton and all that stuff, it's feeling kind of messed up here. So I don't know. I see that it's going to be interesting with these elections and with the court cases and everything, but we'll see, right? I see that we're running low on time here, Barry, and there was one other thing I wanted to cover, which is
gotta make it quick. I gotta show you. I gotta share a show. Oh, okay. You want to do a show?
Yeah.
All right. Geez. Okay. One second, because I got one too.
Oh, good.
I just wanted to use our graphic that I always.
Oh, I love that, Barry.
Movie and
way to break
reviews.
that one out.
Yeah, I pulled it up early. What do you got?
Well, let me show you mine. This one's called King Time: The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. And this came out in 2023. And it is all about really the competition between Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. And you've got some great actors in this whole drama. It's a 2-season series. You can binge watch this. I was hooked within the first 10 minutes of this whole thing. The acting is superb. The filming is superb. This guy that plays Magic is incredible. He's so much like Magic. He looks so much like him. He talks just like him.
He doesn't look like him in that picture.
Wait till you see it. It's well, he doesn't look like him now, but if you look at older pictures.
Oh, I see. Older
pictures of Magic Johnson. Yeah. That is what he looks like. Larry Bird looks like this. This is
Larry,
Kareem right here.
That looks like Larry Bird to me.
Yeah, and this is Brody. Adrian Brody played Pat Riley, and John C. Riley is in here. These guys were amazing. Quincy Isaiah playing Magic. I mean, here, look at him here. These guys. So this guy that played Kareem, he looks so much like him, and they act so much like him. But let me tell you. First off, this is extremely inspirational. The whole story and how this all comes about and how the NBA was looking at bankruptcy when these two came into the league and how they saved the league. It's an amazing story of competition, of drama, of human heart, of challenges that are overcome. The show made me like, I was like, oh, the game shots, Barry, the drama of it. I was so into it. I felt like the way they filmed this, I felt like I was in the game. Then I saw a documentary after the series was over of some of these games. It's amazing how the different plays they showed in the movie where these actors are acting it out looked identical to what the actual thing is. And when you think about the supreme athleticism of these NBA players, are the best athletes in the world, and these actors are doing the same things and playing it. I don't know how they did it. It's an amazing documentary. It is it made me laugh, it made me cry, and I highly recommend this one.
Well, cool. And that's on HBO Max.
It is, yes.
Okay, all right, that's cool. And I got a wild one for you. So you like The Boys?
Oh, I love that one. Yes.
Yeah. This is also on Amazon Prime, and it's very much like The Boys. It's called Fallout. And I just pulled up Google pictures on this because frankly,
I just started watching that last night.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. I watched the first 2 episodes last night, and I really like it. I like this guy.
I got hooked immediately.
Yeah, the cowboy guy. I love that guy, the actor. He's such a great actor.
Wanton, can't think of his name now. He was in Justified. He was the villain in the show Justified, one of the best shows ever. And Wanton Gibbons.
I don't know his name. He's a great actor, though.
He's a great actor.
I see him in, he's really good.
Yeah. Walton Goggins. There it is.
Yep.
Yeah. He is a great actor. This show is phenomenal. As a designer myself, I'm always looking at the sets, blown away. How did they come up with like this really solid? It looks like it's like a 1940s sci-fi inspired stuff.
It really does.
Yeah, and the sets are amazing. The robot, I shouldn't say robot. What did they call those? Bodyguards?
I don't know.
Knights. They call them knights.
Oh, knights. That's right. Yep.
It is. Oh, dude, you don't even know this yet, but it gets into a whole class struggle thing between. I'm not giving anything away. That you're just going to really look forward to this. So the people in the vault represent like Lily. Leftist versions, like Canadian type people who want to be told what to do and live in that safety umbrella. And the people on the surface represent Wild West chaos, brutality, just in freedom. And then you'll see the problems that creep in when the innocent leftists down there get exposed, like anything outside of their small, tiny collective.
They're snowflakes.
They are, to say the least. And they show that they illustrate it very, very well. I think I'm at about the end of the season, and season 2 is greenlit. Dude, I don't know how they afford to develop the show because the sets
are amazing. I mean, this is, like after nuclear disaster happened.
Dystopian. Yeah.
And a lot of it is in LA, right there where we were riding our bicycles.
You would know.
Because you see the pier and everything. Yeah. That's where Barry and I were with Barry. Barry came out to visit, and Well, it was crazy when you came out to visit because all those homeless people were living down there, and it was already terribly dystopian over there.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
But this is like a few years after that.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, it's so crazy.
Right. I'll explain just a little bit more. So the world is in huge disruption, like it is right now. Like this is so timely. And so they decide to create a number of these vaults, giant underground vaults with 12-foot lead lined things to prevent nuclear disaster. So you could buy a certain facility, your way into a certain facility, and the more purchasing power you have, the better accommodations you're going to have. It's just like our current class struggles. And then lo and behold, yes, there is nuclear war. And by first episode, wasn't that riveting? Like it had me at the first episode for sure.
Yeah. When the disaster comes, and that was quite a thing.
And you get to see what happens with Walton Goggins' character,
right?
And I'm like at the end of season 1, and it's still unfolding his origin story.
Well, what's interesting to me, Barry, is how in the news right now is all these billionaires are building these fallout
bunkers,
shelters right now. Yeah. And you hear all these rumors about underground tunnels and things like that here in this country. So again, it's kind of like, is this art imitating life, or life imitating art? It's like you said, this is very timely stuff right here. Very, very good writing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
This, like you said, the sets are, I don't know how they they turned Santa Monica Beach into this amazing
I looked
thing.
I looked up YouTube videos that I figured there's all kinds of specials about how they developed the show, and I really couldn't find much.
You know, what was interesting, and looking at those scenes of Santa Monica, they keep showing that mountain in the background. That's where we used to live. And it's like, oh my God. It's so crazy to see that.
Yeah.
Anyhow, great stuff, Barry.
Yeah. Fun stuff. With that, think we should part?
Yep.
Okay. So guys, go to over50startingover.com, sign up there, get all this to your email box as it happens, or go to YouTube, and our channel is Over 50 Starting Over. Or go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, sign up there. Go to Apple, give us a 5-star review, please. Over 50 Starting Over. All right, Merle, have a great weekend. Fun podcast.
You too, Barry.
All right.
All right.